Woo! So the whole boxing world is still in a frenzy. A lot of people looking like complete morons who are screaming about how this Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua fight was going to happen for all these months. And like for months I've been saying it, video after video, that it was all BS and that fight wasn't happening, that they weren't getting past that arbitration. That's number one. And forget that. I've even said, even if that wasn't for that arbitration, that fight still wasn't happening. It was still all BS. It still was all cap, as they say nowadays. It was. That's why you never had, you never got that, what do you call it? Proof of funds. People stop talking about that, but that never happened. They never got that. It's always next week, next week, next week, next week, next week, next week. That's all it's been. But that to the side, the talk now is that somehow people are still expecting Deontay Wilder to step aside. People are still expecting him to take some kind of step aside money. They're trying to blame him for the fact that there's an undisputed fight is not, quote, happening. When it came to Sergio Mora, which is crazy because he's a fighter. He's here talking about how, if it was him, he would, quote, put his pride aside and, he wouldn't do the fight. He would take his, take the $10 million or whatever they would give him. He would take that $10 million and, and he would just let them fight, and move on. That's what he would do. But of course you would do that because you've never seen $10 million. You've never generated that amount of money, to begin with. That's number one. And number two, obviously, Deontay Wilder's built a little bit differently than you. When it comes to pride, no, he's a very prideful man. And what he speaks on, he stands on. He 100% stands on whatever he says. And it's easy to say the things that he said all of these years when you're not put into a position where you got to follow through with it. A lot of people talk a lot about, how they would do this, do that, I'm this, I'm that. But when the time comes to show if you really are that, things switch up. Like another person, like a Sergio Mora, yes, he would have taken a substantial amount of money and said, I'm good, let me go take a lesser fight. But when it comes to somebody like Deontay Wilder, he's not like that. He's not built like that. If he was built the way that Sergio Mora is hoping he'd be, he never would be in the space that he's in right now, from being starting boxing late, seeing the situation his daughter was in and decided I'm going to do something that's going to better my child's life, not going into the streets, being smart enough not to get into the streets and doing dumb stuff, working 2-3 jobs and saying this ain't going to cut it, getting into boxing, getting better at his craft, and progressing through the ranks, getting a bronze medal in the Olympics, and then doing what he's doing now, becoming champion, getting the big paydays against Ortiz, against Dominic Brazil, against Tyson Fury, and now you get caught up into the situation that you were caught up in the last fight, where you get your first loss, where a towel gets thrown in, where you get injured badly, and you're like, you know what? And where there's people are willing to give you a substantial amount of money for you to just sit down. But he's like, no, I don't care about all that. I want to fight. I want to fight. I'm going to stand on everything that I've been talking about. I'm going to stand on it. He stood on it by firing his coach because he said he's willing to die in that ring. And when, the coach took that away from him, what he's been preaching, took away his chance to prove that, he said, you got to go. And when it came to this situation where he could get a substantial amount of money and step aside, he said, nah, I don't care about no step aside money. I don't care how much money you put in my face. Let's go. I need my revenge. I need my revenge in blood. That's it. So he's standing on this too. So you got to put nothing but respect on him. Sergio Mora, I guess he's not built that way. Like I said, if Deontay Wilder was built that way, he wouldn't be where he is right now. If Anthony Joshua was built that way, Anthony Joshua would have never fought Ruiz the second time. He said, nah, I don't care. I understand people saw me get my tail whipped. I understand people are saying it's too early to take on the second fight, but I don't care. I want my revenge. I want my belts back. He wouldn't even have his belts right now. But he said, nah, forget that. I need that. I need to run that back, and I need to run that back now. If he was built like Sergio Mora, we never would have seen that fight. If Muhammad Ali was built like Sergio Mora, we never would have seen Ali versus Foreman. I remember going, obviously I wasn't even alive back then, but I've seen the documentaries. And in the documentaries, everybody was talking about he was crazy. You know, everybody saw what George Foreman did to Frazier. Beat the brakes off that man. You know, so everybody's like, damn, Ali, we saw the issue you had in that fight. We seen what that man did to you in that fight. And Frazier did to you in that fight. You're gonna take on George Foreman? This machine? Are you crazy? They're like, he's gonna end his life. He's not gonna make it out that ring. He's gonna get destroyed. That's what everybody was saying back then about what George Foreman was gonna do to him. But he's not built like Sergio Mora. I'm sure he could have stepped aside and not did that fight, but he's not built like Sergio Mora. He's built from the same cloth that Anthony Joshua was built from when he got caught up into the space where he was caught up into, regardless of the things we say about Anthony Joshua. You know, when it comes to Deontay Wilder, he got caught up in the situation that he's in, and we see how he's reacting to it. We see how he's responding to it. They're not built like Sergio Mora. That's why they reached the heights that they reached, and Sergio Mora didn't. Maybe if Sergio Mora had a different type of mentality, he would have progressed even further in his career as a boxer. So it is what it is. And another thing is that, you're old, you're getting old, you're 35, you should take the 10 million and just sit down because you've been out for a whole year. Age can catch up to you in a second. No, Ish, you're right. Age can catch up to you, especially when you're at 36 years old. So why would you step aside? Why would you give away your chance of revenge? And a bigger payday. You're talking about $10 million. He's going to make $30 million plus on this. Fury's going to make $50 million plus on this fight. The pay-per-views from the UK, from the United States, the merch that's going to be sold for this fight, the sponsors that are going to be involved in this fight, the gate, the concessions. All, do you understand the type of funds they're going to make off this fight, regardless of what people want to say? Oh, no one wants to watch this fight. And the same people saying they don't want to watch this fight, no one wants to watch it. The same channels that are going to be doing video after video after video after video about the fight. So it is what it is. So that makes no sense. You could fight him right now, get your belt back, and put yourself into a space for a huge pay-per-view with Ruiz, or, undisputed with Anthony Joshua, because there's no reason not to give Deontay Wilder 50-50 now. So you have that option. You have those two options. Those could be your next two fights at a very late, age in your career. So, you're basically somebody that's considered old when it comes to boxing. But what Sergio Mora is saying, though, is like, yeah, you're old and you could fall off the cliff at any time, but what you should do is let these two guys fight. You sit on the shelf, basically, fight lesser competition for a year and hope that a year from now you can get a shot against the winner. That's the more intelligent thing to do. And actually lose millions of dollars in doing so. But just take this 10 instead. Get the F out of here, man. Thank God, I'm happy that Deontay Wilder's not built like Sergio Mora. I'm glad that he stood on his own too, and I'm glad that this fight's happening and he's getting his just due for something that he should be getting, per that contract that was signed. He deserves his chance to revenge. Deserves it, whether he wins or loses. He deserves that chance, to make amends for what happened. And Carpenter's here talking about how it's a black eye for boxing. It might be a good fight, but it's a black day for boxing. Some BS like that. Why is it a black day? Where was all this talk when Andy Ruiz won that belt and people were like, hey, let's get this undisputed between Ruiz and Deontay Wilder? Where was that talk then? Two PBC fighters, which would have been a bigger fight in the United States on Cinco de Mayo. In September, Independence Day. You understand how massive that fight would have been, period? And we would have had that undisputed, and then the winner could have fought Anthony Joshua, but Tyson Fury was like, nah, I'm not stepping aside. You owe me 2 fights, I'm going to get my 2 fights. Anthony Joshua was like, hell no, I want my rematch now. But it wasn't a black cloud for boxing then. It was okay then. When Canelo Alvarez was 1 belt away from fighting against Demetrius Andrews for undisputed, in which would have been one of the biggest fights in years, with Canelo making history. Where was all this talk then? Huge fight for boxing, man. I mean, that would have been a massive fight for boxing, especially after basically the exit of Floyd Mayweather and basically Manny Pacquiao. He's basically retired. Massive fight. But did we get that? No. Well, did they have all this talk? No. But because Deontay Wilder, though, the guy that you've been pissing on and trashing on and saying that he had no case and he just needs to step aside because there's nothing that he can do, the guy you've been belittling and trashing all this time, you know, at the end, he becomes victorious. He's standing on the top of on the mountain on his Rihanna, bitch, better have my money. You better pay me what you owe me state of mind. And all of a sudden now, oh, he needs to step aside for the goodness of the boxing and the boxing fans. F you, both of those clowns. F both of those clowns. You know, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury 3. Maybe it looks like maybe it happens on July 4th. In what will be the biggest fight of 2021. Period. And I can't wait for it. Like, subscribe, share. I'm out. Don't be built like Sergio Mora in your life. You ain't gonna make it nowhere.